Hello everyone, Nostril here coming at you with another Nostril Soapbox video, and the topic this time around is going to be what I've touched on before, and it's the topic of preservation, in this case specifically game preservation. Now, 2024 hasn't exactly been a great year for games preservation, from companies like Nintendo going on takedown sprees of ROM sites like Vim's Lair, which I covered in a previous video, to more recent developments like the U.S. Copyright Office denying a petition by the Video Game History Foundation to allow libraries to lend digital copies of games to academic researchers, after the ESA and other games industry lobbyists argued that it would lead to, and I quote, a significant risk that preserved video games will be used for recreational purposes. God forbid a medium that was designed to be entertaining actually entertains researchers while they're doing their work, right? I think the industry is trying to actively stamp out its past because they're afraid. Afraid that if more people were to go back and realize just how good a lot of these old games were, they'd be less inclined to buy the latest always online live service slop game that's been crippled by microtransactions, season passes, and other predatory monetization practices meant to nickel and dime the player to death. But it hasn't been all doom and gloom on the game's preservation front this year. In fact, there's been two recent positive developments that I'd like to go into in more detail. The first of these is GOG, formerly known as Good Old Games, announcing its GOG Preservation Program, which is an ongoing effort to maintain and update a curated list of games to ensure that they work properly on the latest versions of Windows. The program currently has 100 games with over 500 stability, compatibility, and localization fixes and additions, with plans for many more to be added in the future. This is on top of GOG's pledge to offer games DRM-free, a pledge that they've been mostly faithful to. It's also worth noting that this program covers newer games as well as older ones, so this may prove to be a valuable resource for game preservationists moving forward for newer titles. Now, having said all that, there are a few caveats to bear in mind. The first being that this is a curated list, so don't go in expecting GOG to cover their entire game catalog with this. The fact that there's an average rating statistic on the preservation page also indicates to me that probably only the most popular and well-regarded games will get the preservation treatment. So if you have a favorite janky title that wasn't very well regarded, but you happen to personally like it, I wouldn't be holding my breath for it to be added anytime soon, if ever. Another consideration is that this preservation program is solely focused on Windows for the operating system, and there are currently no plans to extend it to any other platforms. So I'm afraid macOS and Linux users will still have to resort to their same old workarounds or be left out in the cold, depending on what the title is. Finally, there's the concerning possibility that games could be removed from the program by the publishers. And this was addressed in their FAQ, and while GOG kind of danced around the question, saying that they never want to see that happen and don't see why it should, the fact that they never gave a concrete answer indicates to me that if push comes to shove, that's exactly what would happen if a publisher requested that it be removed. All in all, though, I'd say this is a pretty positive development for games preservation, particularly for members of the general public who probably use Windows if they have a PC and they want to play some great PC games right out of the box, so to speak, but they don't want to get their hands dirty with going through emulation, torrents, scouring the internet for community-made compatibility patches and fixes, and what have you. The second gaming preservation topic I want to talk about is one that's rather near and dear to me. You see, back in the day, I was a huge fan of the Halo games made by Bungie. Well, just 2 weeks ago, a modding team called Digsite recently released a fully playable version of the Halo 2 E3 2003 demo for the Master Chief Collection. For those who may not be in the know, the E3 2003 demo has earned a particular degree of notoriety amongst Halo fans, as it provides a tantalizing glimpse into what might have been for Halo 2. You see, at this point in Halo 2's development, Bungie had come to the sobering realization that the scope of the game had far outpaced the original Xbox's capabilities, meaning they had to essentially start over from scratch. They still had a looming E3 deadline, however, so they cobbled together a very unstable, yet technically playable, demo of the new Mombasa level for presentation purposes using the assets they had. While a few elements of the demo, like certain lines of dialogue, made it into the final game, the vast majority were either changed or scrapped completely, resulting in a radically different depiction of the level compared to retail. Suffice to say, players like myself were initially confused at all the changes until it was revealed just how troubled Halo 2's development was. And while I understand completely Bungie's reasoning for not making the demo available to the public, there's always been a part of me that's always wanted to try out this demo experience just to see how different things were. Fortunately, the recently renamed Halo Studios, formerly 343 Industries, revealed a few years ago that not only did they come into possession of that original E3 demo, but they had turned it over to the Digsite team to allow them to make a fully playable version of it. Now, I have a multitude of grievances regarding the direction Halo Studios has taken the franchise over the years, but this commitment to preservation of restoring lost content, I am absolutely behind, and I wish more studios would do the same. As for Digsite, this isn't the first time they've tackled a project like this, having restored a number of beta and cut content for the first Halo game, including a similar E3 level demonstration that never made it into the final game. And boy did they deliver with this one, delivering a gameplay experience that is not only faithful to the original demo, but is also far more stable and less prone to crashing. They've even added a sandbox version of the level, allowing you to explore every nook and cranny to your heart's content. As someone who's watched the original demonstrations more times than I can count, who's practically memorized every single movement and action taken during those recordings, it was so surreal and more than a little emotional to have a 21-year-long dream finally being fulfilled and being able to play the E3 2003 demo myself. I feel like recommending this to fellow Halo fans is practically a no-brainer, especially for those of us who remember eagerly counting down the days for Halo 2's release. But it's worth checking out even if you're not a Halo fan, because it's a shining example of what can be achieved when a publisher gives their blessing for preservationists to restore what was in some ways lost media. The only real caveat regarding this one is that it's only available for the PC version of the Master Chief Collection, so sorry Xbox players. And that about sums it up for this Nostril Soapbox video. I focused on the positive this time around because I feel like it's important to acknowledge and celebrate these sorts of things, especially in the field of digital and game preservation. So thank you so much if you've gotten this far, and until next time, take care everyone.
Take my weapon! You'll need it!